begins in a corridor of closed shutters. Tehran's Grand Bazaar, December 28, 2025. Merchants who once backed the state stand silent as the rial plunges and essentials spike. Hours turn to days. The anger migrates from prices to power. By the third dawn, chants in 111 cities name the system itself. Then Abdanan. A line of officers lowers rifles, hands open, clapping with neighbors. This is the story of a regime's foundation, its cash flow and its constables, shifting under its feet, step by step, district by district. Before we move on, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and like the video. So when the shutters dropped without a word, what really shut down was leverage. The Grand Bazaar has served as the regime's economic lung since 1979, moving goods, cash, and favors along arteries built over generations. Merchants tied into import channels, wholesalers linked to cash-based networks, and tax collectors tapping value-added flows. This is how money and influence cycle. Political patronage sat on top of it. Licenses issued, inspections waived, credit unlocked for loyalists. When that machine idles, power loses oxygen. The strain had been visible for months. The rial slid until sellers quoted a black market dollar at around 1,450,000 rials, and every shelf label had to be rewritten. Bread costs climbed in jumps that no paycheck matched. Pharmacies asked families to pay 3 times what they did last season for common medicines. Banks started rationing cash at counters. People queued for hours and left with limits that barely covered rent increases. More households cut meat, fruit, and transit to keep lights on. By late December, the math no longer worked for anyone living on salaries. December 28, 2025, the bazaar did something it had avoided for decades. Metal shutters rolled down in long rows. Passageways that usually choke with porters and buyers went quiet. Not a holiday. The first collective pause by a group known for staying open through wars, sanctions, and crackdowns. It felt like a valve turning off. Even the tea stands that keep deals warm went dark, as if signaling no business today, not at any price. That matters because Bazaari backing has long stabilized the state. Their taxes feed the treasury through VAT and licensing. Their warehouses and trucks keep wholesale distribution moving. Their confidence, shown by staying open, sends a signal to smaller markets that payment will clear and goods will arrive. Remove that signal and you choke cash intake, you shake the supply chain, and you dent belief. Confidence isn't abstract here. It shows up as a crate sent on time or a credit line extended for another week. Data points sharpen the picture. An official inflation print sat in the low 40s, but on the street, households faced higher real costs. The black market dollar rate pushed import prices up across the board. A standard food basket with rice, bread, eggs, cooking oil, and basic vegetables ate a bigger share of monthly income, crossing the point where parents picked medicine over protein. That is where the budget breaks. It's not theory. Receipts and withdrawals define it. One merchant's decision tells the story. He had stayed loyal across past currency shocks, kept selling when others slowed, and took thin margins to keep his stall open. Then suppliers told him they would only accept dollars. He did the math. With the rial at that rate, converting cash for stock meant losing money before he unlocked the shutter. He stopped sales, sent his helpers home, and waited. Not out of protest slogans, but because business had become impossible. Word moves fast along the lanes. Rumors of coordinated closures ran from Tehran to provincial markets by afternoon. Unions began whispering about synchronized days off, delayed payments to wholesalers, and collective refusal to restock until exchange rates stabilized. Smaller towns echoed the same tactic, testing whether a quiet stall could push a loud message. Each rumor added pressure on those who still hesitated to close, because nobody wanted to be the last open shop in a dead corridor. Within 48 hours, demonstrations that started with receipts and rents turned toward names. Chants that focused on prices became chants about leaders. The bazaar, where cash talks, had pushed the conversation past economics. And when cash stops moving, eyes turn to enforcement. If the shopkeepers won't play, the next move falls to the baton, and the baton belongs to men who now walk past neighbors on their way to the line. Why did a small town become the first crack while the capital burned portraits? The spread was fast and wide. Within 48 hours of the Bazaar pause, protests leapt from Tehran into 111 cities and villages. The chants changed with the map. They started on the price of bread and the collapsing currency, then shifted to calls that named leaders and demanded an end to the system. That shift matters because it shows intent. People no longer asked for relief. They demanded replacement. Security doctrine met that wave with the old playbook. Commanders issued orders to disperse. Lines formed with shields up and rifles shouldered. The crowd answered with, "Death to the dictator." Fear and fast escalation are supposed to break gatherings before momentum builds. That is the theory. It counts on cohesion, the idea that every man in uniform will move as one when the command comes. Abdanan did not move as one. On January 6, 2026, in a city of roughly 25,000 near the Iraqi border, something else happened. Videos showed officers facing a dense crowd and choosing not to act. Rifles lowered instead of leveled. Tear gas canisters stayed in their bags. Then hands clapped. Not confusion. Not a misheard order. A clear refusal to fire on people they recognized. In a town that size, uniforms share streets and schools with the same families now shouting across the square. Why there? The psychology is simple and heavy. Low pay eroded by inflation hits a patrolman before it reaches a ministry. Salaries buy less each week. Rent climbs. Fuel takes a larger bite. When a child's antibiotic triples in price, the badge does not insulate a household. Proximity makes it personal. An officer who buys bread from the same stall as the man holding a sign does not see a faceless threat. He sees a neighbor. The risk of defection rises where hardship is shared at eye level. Iran has seen balking before, moments when local forces held back or stood aside. But Abdanan marks a sharper edge because it was filmed and circulated. Political science calls these tipping points. Tunisia in 2011 moved when police exhaustion and army hesitation let crowds hold ground. Sudan in 2019 shifted when rank-and-file soldiers shielded sit-ins against orders. Those are not one-to-one matches, but they outline the mechanism. Once one line refuses, others start recalculating costs. Look at the signals. Weapons down, not up. No tear gas deployment when the doctrine calls for it at the first surge. Mixed ranks, not a lone conscript hiding behind a van. You could see supervisors failing to impose a single posture. That muddle tells you dissent was not an accident. It lived across the line, from the front row to the back. The aftershock traveled. If one town's line breaks, can the command chain reassert discipline? Headquarters can rotate units or send in forces without local ties, but time matters. The longer the video circulates, the harder it becomes to paint it as a rumor. Copycat refusals do not need coordination. They need plausible cover. A sergeant can claim a crowd was too dense to fire. A lieutenant can delay a dispersal order. Small pauses add up.